Hi, everybody. So March is here, and we've been introduced to March's block of the month, the Pinwheel Star version 1. And I say version 1 because the Pinwheel Star can be made in a lot of different configurations that has that pinwheel in it. This just happens to be the version that I digitized for us this month. So if you are looking for the video that shows you how to stitch out the component blocks, the double modified half square triangle, the quarter square triangle, and the diamond in a square, then you have the right video up. If you are new to us here at Sew Uncommon, those are the blocks we're going to stitch out today. And this will help you along that path as well if you've never stitched out those blocks. Hi, everybody. I'm Diana. I'm the owner, educator, and the designer here at Sew Uncommon. So glad to have you all with me for this video. You're actually going to see me stitch out each and every one of those 3 blocks that I just showed you. And so the first thing I'd like to do is take you under my main camera and show you some of the things you're going to need. So I always have a really good pair of embroidery snips. I really like the scissors that have a fine micro blade on them, micro serrated blade. They really help keep your fabrics from fraying, and they make really good clean cuts. So, but any embroidery scissor will do. I like to use a seam roller. You'll see me do that when we do the flip and the stitch and flip and stitch again technique. You'll see me use that. And I always like to have, a little glue stick on hand in case I need to hold my piece down with a little bit more security. And then I have all of my fabrics cut and ready to go. So those are the things we're going to need today. Why don't we go ahead and come out of that camera and go straight over to our machine camera, and why don't we get started? So the first block that we're going to do is the quarter square triangle. It is technically a block that is done in 2 components. You do half of it, then you do the second half. If you're working with a 4x4 hoop on your embroidery machine, because maybe that's the only size your machine will take, that's perfectly okay. You would do this block in 2 hoopings. I'm using a 6x6 frame for my Brother machine. I know this also works on the Baby Lock machines. I don't know if any of the other machine brands has a 6x6, but something 6x6 or larger, you can get both components of this block done in 1 hooping. Now, let's talk for just a moment about the stabilizer that I'm using. In the block of the month, week 1 video for March, when I introduced our Pinwheel Star, I also talked about using a water soluble stabilizer, the kind that we use for freestanding lace, just like you see here. And that's what I'm going to be using today. You can also use a no-show mesh, or if it's all you have, you can use a tearaway. Please be extremely careful when you're tearing on stitches, because what we're really doing when we piece in the hoop on our embroidery machine, so we're asking our embroidery machine to do what our sewing machine would normally do. And so all we have are run stitches, and they can tear out if we're rough with them, taking off that tearaway stabilizer. But I've started using the wash away, because then at the end I don't have anything left on the back of my squares, and I don't get the whole thing wet. I just take a water pen and I trace around the seams on the back side, and then it just peels away. So I'm not getting everything soaking wet. Check out that video, March's block of the month, week 1, and you'll see a whole demonstration on that, how that works if you want to start using your wash away. Also, if you want a stabilizer that's 100% natural, you can try a lightweight muslin. We talked about that back in January, so I know we have lots of information on that back in the January block of the month videos, so check that out. All right, let's go ahead and get started with our quarter square. Then I've already stitched out the first half of my quarter square, because with this block you're stitching out the same thing twice. So what I've done here is I have stitched out the placement area, and now I am at the step where I'm ready to place my first block, first piece of fabric, and that's going to be this pretty little floral here. And I'm stitching this out in black so that you can match the lightest color in my fabrics, but I like using a light dove gray, just like you see here, for my piecing. So this first one is done. Now here's a little trick. When you're doing something that has two triangles like this next to each other, it can be confusing on how do you place this fabric, because it looks like, well, if I place it right like that and flip it, you know, that fits along that edge, but when I flip it, look, it's not covering the whole piece right here. So what you need to remember when you're doing a quarter square or anything where you have those two triangles next to each other, lay that second piece exactly on top of your first piece. So remember, first pieces of fabric when we piece in the hoop are always laid pretty side or right side up, and then all others are laid right side together or right side down. So just lay that piece right on top of it so that it matches the same footprint right side down though, okay? And as you can see, I always like to leave a little bit of that under fabric sticking out there. And now we're just going to stitch this down. Okay, so now I'm going to just slide this out a little bit, and I'm going to take my glue stick, and you can use any fabric stick or any non-toxic fabric glue stick or school glue stick. I'm going to flip that, and instead of taking this over to an iron or having an iron sitting here ready, which for me, I'm liable to burn myself because I'm in royal klutz, I just use my little seam roller here and just give that a good press. You could also give it a good finger press if you like. And the nice thing about also doing this in the embroidery machine is that you don't have to worry so much about those bias edges like we do with regular quilting. Sorry, I have something in my eye. Let me just see if I can get that out of the way there. Oh. All right, so basically I have this done. I'm going to come back now to our other camera real quick because I want to show you some things here. There we go. So here we go. Here are my two halves. So I can take them out now because these have to be sewn together. And you can find patterns where you sew them together on your embroidery machine. The problem with that, the reason I don't care for it as much, is because you end up with extra thicknesses and extra hooping. So you end up with extra thicknesses of stabilizer, which I find to be a little bit of a waste, and you end up with extra hoopings. And I say, let's do it in as few hoopings as possible. And I'm going to pop on my little magnifiers here, and what I'm doing is I'm lining up the 1/4 inch mark on my ruler with this stitched line right there. Okay, lining all of that up, and then I'm going to take my embroidery cutter and I'm going to cut straight down, and then I'll just come and cut that off. Now I have two parts. Now I'm just going to go ahead and finish trimming around the triangle, and I'm with each line I'm lining up my 1/4 inch mark. And that line, when I go to sew these together, is going to end up being my stitch guide. So I don't need a 1/4 inch foot for my sewing machine or any special kind of a foot for doing that, because that line is going to be my guide. Now let's just do this one the same way, and I'll show you how we put these together. I'm not going to sew them on the sewing machine, but I'm going to show you how we line them up. Because if you saw how I'm kind of in this area where I'm sitting, you know I can't get up at the moment. And one more flip. Line that up again. And there we go. Perfect. All right, we'll set that aside. Now, we have 2 triangles. See how when I cut that original one, I cut that little point off? That's great because we want to kind of reduce bulk in our seams. And one way to do that is to get rid of any kind of dog ear type areas. So you could use your 1/4 inch mark and cut right there, but I actually just come in and cut with my rotary cutter so that I have basically now what looks to be like an engineered corner. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my other half. Don't cut on your lines, don't cut those, but just cut those ends off. That's going to get all of that out of your seam. Now what I'm going to do, so you can see if I just lay that together, whew, there's my pretty 1/4 square triangle. Isn't that nice? So all I have to do is basically flip this over. And if I look right here, this red fabric and this red fabric, if I line them up together so that they're kind of kissing in there, do you see that? And I take and put a, I thought I had, hang on, yeah, I do. I have a little quilt clip in my little organizer. Here we go. So I've got my little quilting clip. I'm just going to put that right there so it's holding it at the seam. I don't care if it's holding it over the seam out in here, but I want that seam held, okay? Or you could use a double-pronged straight pin and do one pin on one side of the seam and one on the other. That actually works really well. Now, I will take this to my sewing machine once I have everything lined up just how I like it. And I'm going to put my needle right here on that point. And then I'm going to use my machine and tap it over one click and one click only to the inside of that line. And then I'm going to stitch all the way down. And as long as you only move it one click, you're not really changing your seam allowance. And you're going to get a perfect seam allowance. And then when you open it up, your block will come together. And you'll have that beautiful block, that beautiful 1/4 square triangle. So that's the only block in this process that takes kind of 2 steps. So not too bad at all. So let's go back to our machine camera. There we go. I'm going to quick put in a piece of stabilizer in my hoop. Now with this block in the instructions, you get photos, you get diagrams, and then of course you have this video for those of you that are real visual learners and like to follow a video. And you'll need 3 types of fabric or 3 color ranges, a light, a medium, and a dark. In the video, I actually tell you where to place the light, medium, and the dark, but I want to tell you, remember, it's your block. You can play around with it. And really what I'm doing today is I am playing around with it a little bit. I'm kind of juxtapositioning my light and medium fabrics. And let me get my diamond in a square up here. There we go. Perfect. So the first thing I'll do is stitch out the diamond in the center. And again, I'm using my water-soluble stabilizer. I have my fabrics here for that. Okay, perfect. So the fabric I'm going to use is this floral. This is my larger print. I didn't really fussy cut it, but I kind of made sure that I got a good bit of that flower in there. And now I'm just going to stitch that down. Oops, hang on. On this one, you have to go back to your first step. So let me explain. After you stitch that out, come over, go back to that first step. Okay. And that way it will stitch this down. There we go. Now we're back. Good. And now we'll stitch this down. Okay, now you can see I've given you a generous cut of fabric here to use for this. So now I'm going to remove this and put my hoop down here on my table. And I'm actually going to trim this. I trim to about 1/8 or no more than 1/4 inch, but 1/8 is pretty good there. I don't trim right on the stitch line. Again, I think you end up with a smoother block if you don't do that right on the stitch line. There we go. And one more. There we go. Get rid of my trimmings. Bring this back up and bring my camera back up. Perfect. Now, I'm going to put down my first corner. So on this block, normally with a diamond and a square, all 4 corners are the same fabric. But for the Pinwheel Star block that we're doing, you have 3 corners that are the same fabric and 1 corner that is a different fabric. And all of that information is in the instruction. So I'm going to lay my first piece of fabric. So it's going to be like this. This fabric there, and then that fabric is going to go there. So if it helps you, actually just lay those out that way on your surface so you can kind of keep in mind which ones go which. So I'm going to lay that there and we'll stitch that down. And I'm going to just give it a little swipe of my glue stick there. And we'll flip it. Give it a little seam press there with our seam roller. A little finger press. Okay. And now we're going to stitch the rest of that down. To this corner. And again, I'll lay my fabric right side down. And doing these yourself, stitches per minute on my machine while I'm demonstrating that this whole thing can stitch out in a minute. So if you are prepared with your fabric and you have everything ready, you can stitch these out quite quickly. And so you aren't spending a whole lot of time with each block. There we go. Stitch this one out. There we go. Now I'm going to be coming down to this corner that's the corner where I'm going to place my other fabric. So I'll lay that out right side down, of course, and then we'll stitch. And I'll just slide that out, a little bit of glue, and flip. Now you don't have to use a fabric glue stick there. I just find it helps while you're doing your little seam rolling and all, and just helps to kind of hold it down. I don't always use it. With bigger blocks, when you have bigger pieces of fabric, you don't need it as much. But I find with my smaller squares like these, it can be helpful. And yes, you're getting generous pieces of fabric here because remember, we have to trim around the outside to finish our block off. So we need that extra fabric there. And I always prefer to have more fabric than less fabric. Now I'm going to get my embroidery tape because I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that. It's optional, but boy, is it helpful. And you'll see why as soon as we've finished this last corner. Give it a little seam roll. There we go. I love this fabric. I want to think maybe this is Bonnie and Camille, but don't quote me because it's a year or so old. So, and it's some that I had left over. Okay, so now the very last step is to stitch our block all the way around. It helps to attach all of these little points really well. But as you can see, you have to be careful or your foot can catch there where they overlap. And then, you know, I mean, you can do it without, and as long as you're careful and watch and stuff, you could be okay. But I like using my embroidery tape to just put a little bit over each join, and that way my foot you can use any tape that you like. Please make sure that if you don't use a tape made for embroidery, a fabric shop or something, to use one skin, because those are basically, it's like using the non-toxic glue stick. That doesn't get a lot of chemical into your fabric, and everything will do well. You won't have chemicals from that glue eating away your fabric over time. Okie doke. Let's just go back to our other camera and we'll trim this one down. Here we go. So here we go. We're done with this one. Now I'm just going to peel off this tape. It comes off really easily. This tape I was introduced to by another embroiderer, another business owner who is an embroiderer, has her own business. But she uses one that is not for sensitive skin, and I found it to be, I don't like using it on my fabric. As someone who does, you've heard me say this before, as someone who does conservation on older quilts, I try to be really respectful of what kind of glues and stuff I put on fabric. But that same company creates one for sensitive skin, and so I'm all about that. And the reason I like this one is because you saw how easily it tore. I'm gonna get a little piece here. So here's 2 layers, and that just tore right apart. So it tears out really easily. I like that. I also use, and I'll give you, so that is a Metapore tape. But get the one that says for sensitive skin, okay? And you'll be better off. I also use Kimberbell paper tape, which I absolutely love. So typically for me, it's whatever I have at hand. And I'm going to trim this now. I've lined this all up with that 1/4 inch mark and the seam line. And we have another video coming out this week, our bonus video. It's going to be on reducing bulk in the seams. It has been a request of several of you. I've given you some tips and tricks in the past, but we're going to do a whole video on it later this week. It'll probably not come out until Thursday because I have appointments tomorrow, so I'll need to film it probably on Wednesday. So here we are. Here is our diamond in a square with the one block that is like this, with the odd corner. Again, just like we did for our 1/4 square, I like to come around and get rid of those corners on a diagonal. That's like taking away your dog ears. It's really your dog ears that's adding a lot of bulk in your seams. You'll see that in the video. So I try to get as much of that done away with while I'm working. And I'll show you like some things I do when I have overlaps and stuff in that other video as well. So there is our diamond in a square. Didn't it turn out pretty? I love those fabrics. Alrighty, so now we are ready to go to our double modified half square triangle. So let me just get another piece of stabilizer. And I'm using pre-cut wash away, water soluble. I love pre-cuts for my piecing my blocks because it goes right in the 6x6 hoop, which is my favorite one to use. Unless I'm doing really big blocks where the component pieces are bigger than the 6x6, I love using this 6x6 hoop. I don't think it's made for every brand, and I wish it were because it's the perfect one for all of us quilters. Alrighty, so let's take that out of the stream. Wait, hang on. Let's take that out and bring that one back in. Wait a minute, I've done that wrong. Hang on just a second. My camera on here it's not picking up the right camera. Let me double check this. Oh, okay. I see what I did. Sorry. There we go. All right. Hang on. Let me come back now. Sorry, folks. When you've got more than one camera, sometimes it's a little confusing. There we go. Now we're back to our main machine. And I'll go in and get my last design. So I need my modified. There we go. Border box. This basically, the border of the whole box is going to show me basically the outline of how big this block is going to be. One other thing, if you're new with us here, sorry about that. The other thing is when we piece in the hoop, we always talk about finish size because our seams are built into our design. Isn't that great? So now I'm going to stitch out step 2, which is the placement for the first. So on this block, basically on this half that we're working on, we are doing kind of, so I'm going to lay that in here. And on this one, yeah, there's going to be a little trimming. I'm trying to lay that out so I don't have to do too much. I'm someone who does trim if I don't have to, so there we go. And and that's not too bad. I'm going to just come in here and I'm going to snip that right off, and I'm not going to trim the rest of that. I think that's fine. Now I'm going to come in here with my next color, right side down. I know basically where that we'll pull that over so I can see that. And give it a little glue. And I'm going to, now on this one, I'm going to add extra glue on this one because I really want this to hold down on the back here. So I'm just giving this bigger piece of fabric a little love there so that it'll hold down. There we go. Now, I should say that you folks are loving this star because I've had to replenish the inventory for the patterns twice today. And so that's fantastic. I love it that you all are liking this and you're going to be doing it with me this month. That's awesome. So now I'm going to lay my next piece down because basically what we're doing now is making the second quarter square part of this. And it's this double quarter square look here on this one half that is our double modified idea. Just slide this out and give a little swipe of glue. Ooh, I've got that one right on the line. I think, well, we'll see. I should have slid that down a little farther. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to leave this because this is a sample, but I want to show you what I've done here. When I laid this down, I did not lay it down far enough this way, and so I don't have a good seam here. If I were going to use this block in another design, I would take this back out and redo this piece and back my steps up. But that's good for you to see that because, you know, we're not all perfect. Perfect hinders the whole idea. I do the best I can, and that's all you should expect from here's my design on my machine and redo that, but it's fine for now. So here's it is, stitching in the hoop, is that when you're laying your fabrics, always lay them a little bit more to the inside of your design rather than out here. As long as you've got like a quarter inch or so out here, you're fine. So if you lay them a little more this way, you won't get caught like that, like I just did. So here we go with the very last piece. For this half anyway. I know I got some, I got a note from a couple of you once saying that you like that I make mistakes. And I might have just made another one. I don't know. No, this is fine. Thought maybe I hadn't gotten my fabric down correctly. That you like that I make mistakes and I show you and I go back. Yeah, no problem. We all make mistakes. Alrighty. Now on this piece, I'm actually going to take it out and do a little trimming. So let's just move our camera down. So I'm going to come in here. Now I'm left-handed. If my trimming and stuff ever confuses you, I'm a lefty. So it might look odd to some of you. And then I'm going to come right across there and trim off that corner. There we go. There we go. Alrighty, now while I'm down here, I'm going to take my last piece, and it is a single piece that's going to make up the other half of the triangle. That back on my machine. Put my camera back up there. Okay, and we'll stitch it down. Then we'll go back under our other camera and we will trim this one out. Someone told me in one of my samples, I didn't have my points all perfectly matching, and she was exactly correct. But that doesn't bother me. I was doing that one fast, actually, because we had to head out the door to a little emergency, and I had to try and get it done. So I usually take to get those right, but like I said, trying to be perfect just makes me more aggravated. Well, we're going to do what we did the last time and do a border box all the way around to hold everything together nicely. So don't let the idea of trying to be perfect get in the way of your having fun and making beautiful quilts. If you're doing something for a contest, of course you want to be a little more careful. I've never given a quilt to somebody and they said, "Oh, your points," because they don't care. They just care that you took the time and that you love them enough to make the quilt for them. And I just found out that the gal that does my hair is expecting her third child in September, and we are just over the moon for them because they have two beautiful children, a boy and a girl, and they have wanted what they're calling their tiebreaker for a while, I guess. And so we're just thrilled as can be for them. And so there is going to be a baby quilt in the works on my machine for their little one come September. And I'm thinking about doing it all in yellows, but I have to kind of surreptitiously find out if she doesn't like yellow. Some people have something really odd against yellow, but I think it's a beautiful sunny buttercup yellows are beautiful for baby quilts. So we'll see. If she doesn't like that, then we'll do something else. All right, that's done. We're gonna go back to our other camera now. We'll take this one out and we'll add this one back in. There we go. All righty, so here we are. And let me just take off my little bit of tape. And if any of that gets in your, like wants to stick there a little bit, it usually just comes right out. You might need to grab it with a pair of tweezers, but it usually comes out with no problem at all. So I would love to see the quilt blocks that you all are making. So when we go back to the main camera here in just a moment, I'll show you how you can add those to your, wherever you post your photos, and how we can see them. And then on the last week of each month, which is our live Q&A, I share those photos with everybody, unless you tell me, "Oh no, don't show it." But please don't be shy. I don't give names out unless you don't mind, because we are all inspired by one another's work. And so, and if you're new, great. Let's see what you're doing. We're here to help one another. My whole idea is to be kind. If we're not for you, I'm sure there's another group that is. But kindness rules the day here at Sewing Commons. So, alrighty, let's line this up. I've got my this cutting mat is so much smaller. I have a whole cutting table, which is huge, over on the other side of the studio. And so when I'm cutting here, I have to make sure I don't like cut off the edge of the mat. And here's my last corner. And I'm going to cut my edges again to get rid of those dog ears. There you go. And if you're afraid to cut that freehand like I did, then of course you can just put your ruler there and cut against your ruler. Alrighty. There is our double modified half square triangle. Isn't that pretty? And there's our other one. And then, of course, we would have our quarter square in here as well when it's sewn together. That was kind of funny, but that would be that one. So these are easy to do. Last month, we did a modified half square triangle where it was just a quarter square on one half, and then the other half was your regular. So this month it's the double modified. And last month we did a diamond and a square, but they were all the same color on our corners. So if you were with us last month, you definitely know how to do this one. The quarter square triangle with the two stitch outs and sewing them together is a little new. And this one is a little bit new because we've done this, but it runs the same way. Alrighty, so let's go back to our main camera. Here we go. All right, so I would love to see what you all are doing. Let me just hold these up. You can kind of see. So that's where that one would go. And let me see here. That's where that one would go. And then, of course, our quarter squares go around there. Alrighty. So if you post your photos, maybe you have a page where you post all your photos, or you post them on your own Facebook page or something like that. That's totally great. When you do, in your comment section, when you're typing out, hey, this is my block that I did, add the @SewInCommon, that tags us, and the hashtag #SewInCommon. That way, at the end of the month, when I look these up, I can see yours and pull them to share with everybody. Or if you want to post them to our Facebook page, and guess what our Facebook page is called? #SewInCommon. So if you want to post them to the Facebook page and do a post, go for it. That Facebook page is for all of you to add in your stuff as well. So please help yourself and enjoy. And then I can pull them from there as well. So this video was Patchwork with Emmy, which is, of course, machine embroidery, for the Pinwheel Star. So I'm going to give you a little challenge. Try making one of each of these blocks from some scrap fabrics, because you don't know what the pattern at the end of the month, the project is going to be. And the project at the end of the month is going to be this block and February's block. So if you haven't grabbed your February pattern yet at our website, then you need to do that. Look for all of our patterns at www.sewincommon.com. All of the block of the months are free during the year of 2023. So grab yours while you're out there. Like I said before, a lot of you are loving this month's block because I've had to replenish the inventory for it twice today. I've gotten notifications that you're out of inventory, you're out of inventory. That's awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. I just appreciate it more than you ever know, because that tells me you're all out there doing some really cool piecing and quilting, and I love that. But your challenge is to make one of each of these, put them all down, take a picture, and post it, because we'd love to see them. You never know, your color selections might give someone else some inspiration. I think when we share like that, we all are inspired. And so I'd love to see the things that you all do. So check that out and take that little challenge for the week. All righty, everyone. I think, is that everything I wanted to tell you? I'm just looking around. making sure. Check out the block of the month video, the March 2023 block of the month week 1 video to show how you use this water pen with your water soluble stabilizer. All of that's in there. And like I said, there will be another video this week, the special bonus video on how we can remove some of the bulk from our seams, the bane of all quilters' existence. No matter what quilting technique you use, getting the bulk out of your seams can be just kind of a pain. But I've got some great tips and tricks to show you, so look for that. Alrighty, so everybody, whoops, let me get rid of that. Until next time, you know what I'm going to go say. Go sew life beautiful. Seriously, go out and make some beautiful blocks this week, or at least try your 3 different squares that go into the main block. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Bye for now, everyone.